Yo, and welcome to Dermis Mondays. I'm Craig.
And I'm Ali.
This week we thought we would talk about album covers. We thought, why not pick out some iconic album covers, some of our favourites, and you know what? It's been a tough process.
Yeah, not easy at all.
There's the classics that everyone knows and loves, and the classic t-shirts you see people wear. You know that they just do not know that album.
Front covers like Nevermind and Dark Side of the Moon, but we picked 5 album covers that came to mind. We're not saying these are the best album covers, we're just saying these are the ones that kind of sprung up when we were chatting about artwork, and we're going to talk about them tonight.
I don't even think I could do a top 5, but
it's really hard.
It's 5 that represent what album covers should be to us, and if we're going to do anything that's going to be in this vein, you'll see there's a bit of a theme going on with the things that we've picked.
So in no particular order. New Order, not New Order. Joy Division, Unknown Pleasures.
Yeah, it's an absolute belter, isn't it? Everyone knows this one. This is one of the ones that people have in their t-shirt, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really funny how it's become an iconic image across t-shirts and posters and all sorts. Kids kicking about wearing the t-shirt with the audio waveforms on the front of it, not knowing at all that it's Joy Division.
Yeah, this album is heavy. This is like the zenith of post-punk. Really heavy going stuff.
It's probably the most iconic Factory Records album cover.
Factory Records was started by Tony Wilson, who was a Manchester radio DJ. If you've not seen the film 24 Hour Party People,
Steve Coogan playing Tony Wilson.
Yeah.
I'm going to start a record label.
Yeah. He just signed bands that he liked. He had a bit of a punk ethos, even though he wasn't really your typical punk kind of guy. He managed to get them onto TV and kind of mainstream stuff when they really aren't a mainstream band. They're kind of notorious as well for a story. Apparently they signed a record deal with blood on napkins in a pub. How true that is, I do not know, but it's one of these legendary albums that's just shrouded in all these stories.
They created their own scene as well, I think, within that label, and the music listeners of the country really bought into it, didn't they?
Another thing I'll say actually as well, the digital version, they've actually zoomed in on the vinyl. The waveform's a lot smaller. Just a wee point.
I wasn't particularly enamoured when the Arctic Monkeys brought out AM, and it was essentially a simplified, less good version of a white audio waveform.
You wonder how no one said along that process. I mean, maybe they're going down the angle that it's a tribute, but you think someone would have been like, nah guys, we need to come up with something. Oh, my card's full. Bastard.
Take 2. And the second album that we picked as an album cover that we both really like is The Velvet Underground and Nico.
Yeah, it's an Andy Warhol classic.
Done in his pop style that actually peeled off in the first edition, which I did not know.
I think they've done a re-release. I've actually got... I've just noticed my angles.
This is going really well today,
I know,
isn't it?
my angle's a bit off. Sorry, let's start that again.
Take 3.
Yeah, sorry man. Sorry, man.
Take 3. And I didn't realise that the original album cover, you could actually peel back the banana.
There was definitely, I know there was some misprints, and you could actually see the pink banana underneath the yellow one. Obviously,
should be highly collectible.
Yeah. I think you can tell that the pink underneath is just a total innuendo. We all know Andy Warhol was a bit freaky anyway, so it's no surprise.
But a genius as well.
As probably true of all geniuses.
It's really funny because yellow on white is a kind of design no-no. The bold black outline of the banana just makes it pop, which I think is really important.
Some people would probably argue that the cover's better than the actual album itself.
Well, it didn't sell particularly well, did it? I think, well, when I say didn't sell particularly well, it sold 30,000 copies initially. Brian Eno was quoted as saying that everyone who bought that first run of that album started a band.
It is a really challenging listen now, but I think just the subject matter of the songs and just how wild it was almost like punk before punk happened.
But we're not here to talk about the music, we're here to talk about the album cover. Number 3 on the list of album covers that we picked tonight is
Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here.
This is actually the only album cover that we've picked that actually has a photograph.
We only realised that once we'd compiled the list.
It's a simple concept. Again, it's not a complicated photo. It's just a really great idea and executed really well.
Yeah, you could really pick any Pink Floyd cover. They're all brilliant. One of the things that really jumps out to me about it is it's really symbolic. It makes you think. To me, it means like selling your soul to the devil. Pink Floyd were really frustrated with their record company and actually their own success, and to them it symbolised basically selling your soul to the record companies. I think the person who actually took the photo, they're quoted as saying that it was like to represent how business people don't show themselves how they actually feel, like if they've been burned. It's a really American thing, isn't it? You got burned.
Yeah, and I suppose that another symbolism is the fact that it was taken in the background is in Warner Brothers film studios in California, which I think looks pretty much the same today as it does in the photograph. But
yeah,
was that just an easy place to do the photo shoot, or were they trying to be iconic?
One thing that stands out to me about it is just the perspective of the buildings in the background.
Yeah, it's got great perspective to it. It's really nice. It's got great depth, and the lines draw you into the centre of the image, which I think is really nice as well.
The white background really makes the photo jump out with the little nuance of the actual picture burning in the corner. It's just a nice wee touch, isn't it?
And the two guys that are in the photograph are two stuntmen. Stuntman on the right, Ronnie Rondell, got the short straw of getting covered in gasoline and setting fire. Both of those guys had done quite a lot of stunt work in some well-known Hollywood films at the time, and actually one of the issues they had with getting that photograph was the wind direction. So they actually had to swap places to get the flames to go in the right direction and actually shake each other with their left hands, I think it was. But amazing that he had the composure to be set alight and get up, and pose and do the handshake. I think the photographer only got 15 shots away before Ronnie had to hit the floor and he was put out with the fire extinguishers. It's quite incredible that it's a one-off shot.
No Photoshop in this one. It's all about composition, isn't it? And that is almost perfect. It's just what's in front of the camera. It's not the photographer as much as there is a skill to taking a photo. Technically, the idea is really what sets that photo apart, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Number 4 on the list of albums that we picked that we thought had quite good artwork is Autobahn by Kraftwerk.
It's quite funny for this one because we were initially thinking of the most recent version of this album cover, but Ali actually discovered that there was another album cover, the original version, and you ended up liking that even more, didn't you?
Pretty sure an old friend of mine, when I was growing up, I'm sure they had an original version of it, because I always remember that as being the painting of the road with the Mercedes driving and the sort of perspective of sitting in the car with the motorway sign sort of just as a feature. But I think when bless you, Gesundheit. I think when Vertigo released it in the UK, they obviously thought that it was better to just release the album as the full blue motorway sign. A very clever marketing decision from the marketing department at Vertigo Records, and now it's the iconic album that we know today.
The interesting thing is that what you see is what you get here. Like, the album is like a simulation of being on the Autobahn, with like early synthesizer sounds replicating cars, which at the time must have been crazy.
Kraftwerk always seemed ahead of their time with their ideas and what was coming in the future in terms of technology, and the original album artwork, it's funny because it reminds me of some of the retro driving games that came out in the early sort of 80s or mid 80s, like Outrun, on the Sega. That was 12 years before that game came out, and it actually looks very similar to that style of gaming, which is quite funny.
It's actually interesting that it's kind of came full circle, because you've got all that synthwave music now. There's a lot of kind of wireframe cars and stuff going on. I think Kraftwerk are just so influential that it actually can't be understated. That album as well, it was one of the first ever pretty much all electronic albums. Pretty groundbreaking, and the cover really captures what they were going for.
And the last album we picked, some of you might not be so familiar with this band, but Noi and their Black Album 75, which I think was their third album, was it?
We really could have picked any Noi cover because they're all pretty much identical. They're all very similar, yeah. But that in itself, I think, is a really smart decision.
And it kind of represents their music, just with the really simple, repetitive beats and really, really basic note structures. You know,
one note guitar riff. You know,
one note guitars, jing 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 jing.
Just one beat for 20 minutes. Brilliant.
It's good driving music.
One of my favourite things about this cover is that the font is just gigantic and there's only 4 characters and they've put it diagonal just to really maximise the use of space, and it just really jumps out, doesn't it? It's just, you know exactly what it is. It's very simple. And
the fact that the exclamation mark is part of their name.
It's quite smart.
It's pretty cool. Noi! Exclamation mark.
Yeah, and interestingly as well, they came from the same German music scene as Kraftwerk, but they just went in different directions. I think one of the members in Noi was actually in Kraftwerk. I need to double check.
I would need to Google that.
Yeah.
Should we Google that right now?
Well, let's do it right now. Live
Right,
Googling. They were both in Kraftwerk. There you go. Apparently as well, that album cover was inspired by Andy Warhol's prints in the 60s, so...
Which is bizarre, we didn't plan that.
Yeah, we didn't know that, but it just shows you the common themes going on here.
Simple, basic, bold. Again, we're not saying these are the best album covers in the world.
Yeah, it's so subjective, day to day even.
So in conclusion, this wasn't really planned, but when we talked about this and we picked these 5 album covers, we were thinking about artwork for our own album, and there's a pattern happening here that a lot of these album covers are very simple, quite bold. Even the photograph in the Pink Floyd album is quite a basic concept, and it's really rare that bands continue a theme across their albums and their releases. The White Stripes did it really well, and obviously Weezer started off with the coloured albums, but then they went off in a different direction and then came back to the red album. But it maybe signifies where a band are creatively, and yeah, it's easy to get fed up and move on to something different and something new in music and in art.
I think as well, one thing to note with all these is that none of them age. They're still going to look cool another 10, 20, 50 years from now.
They just pop and they stand out amongst a crowd of a lot of quite mediocre artwork and photographs and band photos, you know. A lot of common features in these album covers that we both like. Bold colours.
Big and bold fonts.
Simplistic artwork.
Symbolic meaning.
And also when the cover represents the music style that it's associated with.
All of which I would say are minimalistic in this case.
So our album will be just a combination of all of these things. Probably be a photograph.
I'm pretty much certain I don't want it to be a photograph. There was ones that you liked that I was like, and there's ones that I liked and you were like, Yeah, it's the only way to describe it.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
It's trying to pick something that's not tied to your nostalgia for the album, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, these are some of the album covers we liked.
Did you like any of the album covers that we picked? Is there any album covers that you think we should have put in the list? You can let us know in the comments.
We hope you've enjoyed watching this. Remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that bell. And we have been Dermist.
Hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you very much. See ya!
Bye! And cut. Bye.